Hello everyone and welcome to my Frostblade's Trickster build showcase for 3.22 Trial of the Ancestors League. This is the overview of the build. So it's an extremely fast and efficient mapper. It has very high DPS with good survivability. It has big life on hit, big leech, insta-leech, and it freezes everything on the screen, which is one of the best layers of defense. It makes use of whirling blades, so you don't have to rely on movement speed, you're just whirling blades everywhere. It has a pretty solved method to get a strong build. You can get a strong build on this character very easily if you just follow what we go through in this presentation. Can easily do Ubers with some investment. You will need to invest a decent amount of money to be able to reliably do Ubers, but it can do them quite easily once you get some money into the build. It's Leaguestart friendly. You can do this build from level 1 once you do a 5-minute mule. It's new player friendly once you figure out how Trinity works, which we will be going through in this presentation. In my opinion, it is just a better Venom Gaia. I played Val Venom Gaia, the league that it came out. I followed Kobe Black Mamba's build, the Trinity one. It was very good. It was a good build, but this build just beats it. It's just better at everything, in my opinion. And we're not going to be going over gear much in this video because it is a huge subject, and I'm going to be making either one big video or multiple videos on gear for this build. But there is some example gear in the PAB that you can follow. How to play the build. So keep moving. This is the most important thing. Your survivability on this build goes up tenfold if you don't stand still for more than 1 second. 90% of my deaths on this build have been while looting. Spam Frostblades as much as you can. With +2 strikes, Pierce, and Herald of Ice, you hit everything on the screen pretty much when you hit one enemy. Anything that doesn't die gets frozen, and anything that's frozen can't hit you. Use Frostblink to your advantage. Frostblink has a very, very small cooldown if you use it on a pack of monsters or if you use it on uniques. And it gives you 7% more damage because it's linked with Bone Chill. And Bone Chill procs off of Frostblink's chilled ground that it leaves. So use it when you can. Don't forget it's there, it's very handy. Whirling Blades is a very fast movement skill, but unfortunately it can be a bit clunky at times. You'll notice that you're not Whirling Bladesing when you want to be sometimes. If you're experiencing this, it's normal. There's not much that can be done about it. It does seem to be when you're pressing Frostblades that it is the most clunky because they're both attack skills. So if you're struggling with Whirling Blades, try to not be Frostbladesing while you're Whirling Bladesing. And to get the most out of your totems, you want to be using Val War Chief first, then Normal War Chief, then Normal Protector. If you don't do this, you won't get the benefits from all 3 totems at the same time. The big thing here is just use the Val one first. The order of the other 2 doesn't matter too much. You can go Protector War Chief if you want. But when your Val totem is up, you want to be using that first, and then one of the other 2, and then the other one of the other 2. If you don't do that, you won't have all 3 totem buffs up because they'll override each other. This is the mapping showcase. It was too big to put in this presentation, so I am going to put it up here. So this is an 80% Delirious map with Sextants, Scarabs, so pretty juicy map. It's a tropical island, skittering Delirium Orb farming. I've actually never done this before. I just did an example map for the video and changed my atlas because I was curious at how good it looked. Yeah, you can see I'm just Whirling Bladesing around, doing the strong boxes, trying to kill as many monsters as I can to stack up the Delirium rewards. We're using Breach to kill a bunch of monsters in this strategy to get more Delirium rewards, more Scarabs. You can see everything's pretty much dying instantly. Not using any totems here. You only really use totems on uniques and big chunky rares. You don't need to worry about using your totems on normal mobs at all. Thankfully, because honestly using totems does feel kind of bad, but it's a melee build, so you have to use totems. They're more than double your damage. Yeah, it's just Whirling Bladesing around, getting all the breaches. Could be looting while doing this, but I think it's faster to just not loot. And as I said, looting gets you killed, so it's good to just move around. You can see I'm never standing still for more than 1 second for the most part. I was very tired when I was doing this, so you might see me standing still every now and then. But yeah, generally speaking, you don't want to stand still on this build. If you don't, you probably won't die. Once you get your defenses in order, that is. Yeah, you can see I'm using Frostblades on an enemy in front of me, and it's it's prolifing to everything else on the screen. Yeah, there's not much longer on this map showcase because at the end of it I actually crash because the map gets a bit full on after the midway point. But yeah, you can see it's having absolutely no trouble with this map. It's a big quant map. It's got like 100% quant. It's got 80% delirious on it, and everything's just dying pretty much instantly. There's a little rare in here. He dies instantly. He almost kills me with ignite. Ignite is annoying if you don't have anything to leech off of. Ignite can kill you if you don't have anything to leech off of, but it's not that bad. And there we go. There's the crash. Okay, so that's the mapping showcase. And then we're going to go to an Uber Boss showcase. So this is a 83% quant Uber Eater. And if you look at the time, I start hitting him at, I think, 13 seconds. 12, yeah, 13 seconds I start hitting him, and he's dead before 10 seconds. So you can see the build is very strong. You can see level 85 up the top. But yeah, he dies in about 8 to 9 seconds. So yeah, with some investment, the build is very, very good at killing Uber bosses. Okay, offense. So this is how we scale a lot of our offense. So we have base attack speed, percent fizz, and flat cold on the core. Once you get a better core, you will also have crit chance and either crit multi or double damage here. And that's how you scale a lot of your damage. Crit chance on the core is very important. We'll go over that later. Heat Shiver. So every time you freeze with Heat Shiver, it procs. And Heat Shiver does at least double, sometimes a bit more than double fire damage to anything you're hitting with cold damage. And this is key to proccing Trinity, which we'll also talk about later. Yoke gives us 50% shocks, which is very, very, very good damage. Yoke of Suffering is huge on this build. It also gives us a bunch of attributes and resistances, which is nice. The Elemental Inversion Mastery. This mastery here, it causes us 25% of the time to treat enemy monsters' resist values as inverted. So if an enemy monster, like an Uber boss, has 60% res, every 4 hits, on average, it'll treat it as minus 60 res. This mastery is insane. It is insanely good. Trinity, this little blue gem over here. We'll do a section on this later, but basically Trinity gives us a lot of damage if we're proccing it correctly. Nightblade gives us a heap of crit multi, like a crazy amount of crit multi through getting Elusive, and Elusive is very, very strong on this build. And we scale that with some skill points. Forbidden Flesh and Flame, these two bad boys here. These will come later in your build. These are pretty expensive, but they give you Opportunistic, which gives you 25% more damage against Pinnacle bosses, so it's very nice. Lethal Pride. Lethal Pride is how you get your strength on this build, and there is also some very good seeds that you can look for to get a bunch of damage too. You can get things like Intimidate, you can get things like double damage, melee damage, crit multi, etc. Good Lethal Prides are very, very nice for damage. A Watcher's Eye. To start off with, you'll just get a Hatred Flat Cold Watcher's Eye, and that'll be good enough. But later on, you can look at 2 or even 3 mod Watcher's Eyes. They'll be very expensive, but you can get a lot of damage and even some evade chance here, which is very nice. And then +2 strikes, +1 pierce, and Herald of Ice. So this is how you clear in maps. These 3 things are the most important things for clearing in maps. This is how you delete whole screens or freeze whole screens. Oh, actually, I'll look at this is the DPS of my character. It's actually a little bit more than this now because I just did an upgrade, but yeah, 450 mil DPS. Defenses. So you're freezing everything on the screen. That's with the Herald of Ice and the +2 strikes and the pierce. So that is your most important defense. Freezing everything. Freeze is an amazing, amazing source of defensive power. You have Insta-Leech, Life on Hit, and Polymath Recovery. These 3 things mean you're always gaining a lot of health back as long as you're hitting something. If you're hitting something on this build, it is very hard to die. You have Capped Evasion, 95% Capped Evasion with a Watcher's Eye mod. If you don't have the Watcher's Eye mod for Grace Evade, you'll be at about 87%. But that's still very high, right? But a 95% chance to evade is really, really nice. You have Cap Suppression on this build. It's very easy to get. We'll go over that later. 3k or more life. You can get this up to like 3600-3700 if you really want. It just depends on what you're willing to sacrifice for it. You have permanent fortify, which is a crazy defensive tool. Fortify is really, really good. You get 27% fizz taken as Ellie from Taste of Hate and the Chest Crafted mod. You get Steel Skin, which is just nice defense. You get freeze and chill immunity from the one step ahead node on the Trickster Ascendancy. And the two optional things, you can get endurance charges, you just have to lose some crit multi. But endurance charges are nice if you're doing juice mapping, so it's definitely something you can consider. And you can also get Ailment immunity. I wouldn't suggest this. You need to use Storm Shroud and it takes too much investment, I think. But Shock immunity is very easy to get. And I'll go over that a bit more later in the tattoo section of how you can get Shock immunity very easily. But yeah, that's your defenses. So you can just have a look here. Pause the video if you like and see the defenses. What this build can do. This build can do Wave 30 Simulacrum. It can do all Uber bosses. All map mods, like there's a couple of annoying ones, but you can still run them. 100% Delirium or Wandering Path maps, like it has no problem with the strongest content in the game, honestly, mapping wise. Easily clear legions. It's actually a very good build for legions, especially considering it's a melee build. You can insta clear legions as long as the map layout is good, like dunes. You instantly kill essence monsters. The only ones that are annoying is the cycling damage reduction, because it's not cycling damage reduction, it's cycling damage immunity. And honestly, anything else you can think of that's not these two things here. This build is very, very, very good. Deep Delve. This build can't do Deep Delve because it's an evasion-based build. You have 95% chance to evade, but as soon as you get hit at 500 plus depth by a white mob, you will probably die. So you can't do Deep Delve on this build. Some Expedition modifiers. I haven't actually done Expedition on this build because I don't like Expedition, but I got some feedback from people in the community and they said that Expedition can be a bit of a pain in the ass with this build, like, cold immune, fire immune, crits don't do anything, all those kind of things. But yeah, other than these two things, this build can do everything. So, as long as you don't specifically want to do Expedition or Delve, this build is great. Budget. So for the budget build, which will be in the POB, it'll be down in the description. This is what you can look at for the budget. So as you can see, it's pretty cheap. The multi-mod core, you don't have to use a multi-mod core straight off. You can just use an essence crafted core, which will cost you probably less than 1 divine. So this is just like ideal. You want a multi-mod core because it is very strong. But yeah, you can use just a hatred crafted core if you like. And yeah, the build will be under 5 divines total. So this is the skill tree, Ascendancy, Pantheon, and Tattoos. The skill tree here, you'll see I have some red circles. I'll explain them in a second. Your Ascendancies, so you get Polymath, which is it's basically damage based on every skill tree mastery you have that's different. So you want to get as many of these as you can, because each one of these gives you more damage, which is really nice. It also gives you some recovery. Heartstopper, this is the 4th one we take. It's not that great, but it just gives you some survivability. You take 40% less damage from hits and 40% less damage over time, 5 seconds alternating. This one here, +2 max frenzy charges and 200% increased charge duration. The max frenzy charge is obviously nice, but the increased charge duration here is huge. This is what lets you keep your charges up on Uber bosses and everything else in the game. Your charges last 30 seconds or longer, which is very, very nice. And this one here, your action speed is at least 108% of its base value, and nearby enemy monster action speed is at most 92% of base value. This is why you're freeze and chill immune, because your action speed can't go lower. There's only a couple of things in the game that ignore this. It's mostly like delirium stuff. But yeah, you'll basically never be stunned, frozen, chilled, anything like that. You won't be slow on this build, which is very, very nice quality of life. Your Pantheons, you use Solaris as your major god. It just gives you the best survivability. For your minor, there's no like specific one you have to go. I usually use the reduced effect of Shock Garakan here, but you can also use Abarath if you're doing like Exarch altars and you need Burning Ground immunity, that's fine. And you can also, if you manage to get Corrupted Blood immunity somewhere, you can drop your Life Flask and go for a Progenesis and just grab the Bleed Minor Pantheon here, and that's a pretty good option too. Okay, back over to the skill tree. So these 3 red circles are basically what you drop when you go to a large cluster, which we'll go over more later. And then this cluster here, this is a +1 strike cluster. That's all you take it for. When you get +2 strikes on your gloves instead of +1 strikes, you will drop this. So that's when you drop this, was when you get +2 strikes on your gloves. But yeah, just quickly going over the skill tree. This is mana reservation, and this is mana reservation. This is all you need, those two clusters. This is crit damage up here, ally damage. This node here you can't drop. You need this node, so never drop this. Damage, life, a jewel here, come across here. This is a bunch of suppression here. This tattoo here is a fortify tattoo. Damage, crit multi, elusive damage, insta-leech, this is very important, life, claw damage, your lethal pride, so this is where you get all your strength from, power charge, frenzy charge, some more suppression here, crit multi, accuracy and attack speed, another jewel for your watcher's eye, more frenzy charge, more life, more suppress. This node here is very nice, gives you ally res, gives you crit chance, gives you damage. And this cold cluster here is extremely important. You have to take this. This is how you get full cold conversion, full fizz to cold conversion. So yeah, that's the tree. And then tattoos. So as I said before, this tattoo here, this is a fortify tattoo. This fortify tattoo is extremely important. It lets you get a different implicit on your chest instead of the fortify implicit. So it's very, very good for 1 point to get melee hits always fortify. This gives you a lot of defensive power. For DPS on dex nodes, your best is the mark effect tattoo. These have breakpoints, so even though they may not seem as good as cold damage tattoos at first, they will be. I promise. Mark effect tattoos are extremely strong. They're also pretty expensive at like 50 chaos each, so I put a budget option in here. The cold damage is pretty good too, and it's like 1C each, so they're very cheap. You have this is your best damage on int tattoos, the Herald buff effect, and this is your best damage on strength tattoos, the fizz damage. This tattoo here, 15% reduced effect of shock on you. If you can put this on these 3 int nodes up here, you'll be shock immune with the small Pantheon. So this is pretty nice to do. I did this for a while until I needed something else there. And then these are just 3 good purple tattoos to use for fixing your build a bit. All attributes is extremely, extremely good. For a lot of situations, so always remember you have this available to you if something's wrong with your attributes. The skill gems. So I think this is like the minimum of what you want for the build to feel really nice. 21 0 hatred and grace are extremely easy to get. Just level them up in your offhand and vial them when they're done. You don't need quality on these because it's just area of effect, which is useless to you. So get these 21 as soon as you can. And the rest is just like 20/20 basically. Some you don't need quality on, like Culling Strike, Ancestral Protector, Ancestral War Chief, you don't need quality. And then there's a few 21 gems here. So Frostblades is the same as Hatred and Grace, just vial them when you get them to 20. Ice Bite and Multi-Strike, you do want the quality on them, so you'll have to flip these twice and then try to vial them. But you get so much damage from 21 on these gems, I would highly recommend getting it. But everything else is just 20 basically, or lower level. We'll go over why these levels are like this more later. Life Tap only needs to be level 1, and Precision will be 10, and we'll go over that a bit more later as well. Divergent Frostblades. So these are like some alternate gems that you can get if you need them. This will help you with freezing bosses because it ups your freeze duration. So Divergent Frostblades is nice to have, but it's not necessary at all. Phantasmal Ancestral Protector. This gives you a bunch of attack speed. This is very good DPS. I would recommend getting this if it's cheap. Anomalous Nightblade is okay DPS. It's not anywhere near as good as Phantasmal. Same with Divergent Mark on Hit. It's more DPS, but it's not as much. Level 4 Enhance. When you get Culling Strike on an Impossible Escape, if you decide to go that route, putting Enhance on your totem setup, if you have Phantasmal Ancestral Protector, is a fair bit of damage. It's nice to have. A Frostbomb, if you have a spare gem slot, you can use Frostbomb. I personally don't like it because it's an extra button and it's only like 3% damage, but you know, it's 3% damage, so if you want to use it, go for it. And Awakened Multi-Strike, Awakened Added Cold, and Awakened LE damage with attacks. Get these when you can afford them. Multi-Strike is extremely expensive, but Added Cold is usually pretty cheap, and LE damage isn't too bad, it's like a few Divine. So get these when you can, they're just more damage. You'll replace Ice Bite with Added Cold when you get it. Path of Building config setup. So this is the link to the Path of Building. It'll be in the description as well. These are the configs, what you'll need. You can just pause this if you need to copy the configs. So you just go into your skills, you do what I've circled here, and you go into the config, do what I've done here. And yeah, just pause and see. If you don't have any of these things down the bottom, just don't take the respective thing. The only thing I will say is focus. Are you focused here? Number 3. This is only 33% uptime. So if you're not killing a boss in 4 seconds or less, focus only has 33% uptime, so you have to take that into consideration for DPS. But the rest of it is pretty, like, it's pretty, what's the word? It's pretty conservative. Okay, now we're going to go on to the frequently asked questions. Can I Leaguestart Frostblades? Yes. The build is fully Leaguestart viable, and you can start leveling with Frostblades at level 1 after you do a 5-minute mule on a duelist. The first couple of acts are pretty rough. Brutus, Mavale are pretty rough on the first act, but after Act 2 or maybe Act 3, it's very easy. It's a very good build after that. If you want more information, please follow Zish's comprehensive Leaguestart guide here. This link will be in the description as well. He has a great Leaguestart guide, and I recommend everyone to watch that. Gear options and bad gear. You can see I have some red X's up here for some absolutely dog shit gear you should not be using. Do not use any of this stuff, okay? Why not a unique chest, such as Farrell's Fur, Expedition's End, or Lightning Coil? A rare chest gives you way too much utility. The suffixes on your rare chest are very important, and it gives you so much damage from the implicits that it will probably outweigh any of the damage you get from these chests anyway, okay? Farrell's Fur is trash. Don't use it. It's not good on this build. It's really not. Expedition's End is, like, yes, it gives you more freeze duration, but just use Southbound, which we'll go over more later as well. You don't need Expedition's End on this build. Lightning Coil isn't bad. It's actually pretty good. You can consider it, but you have to redo the whole build around it because you're going to have so much minus lightning res. You're going to have like so much missing suffixes on your chest. You have to do the whole build around Lightning Coil. So for this specific build, I wouldn't suggest it. Why no Legacy of Fury? Legacy of Fury sucks, okay? Scorch works against that 25% chance to invert res mastery we talked about before, same as Frostbomb, because it applies before the inversion. So if a enemy has 60% res and you scorch them down to 40% and it inverts, they're going to have minus 40% res instead of minus 60% res, right? So that's worse. So it works against you. And crit capping without Brittle uses way too many passive points. Brittle is just so good on this build. And you lose a lot of suffix power from rare boots as well, same as the chest. So rare boots with Brittle is just much better. Tekrod's Gaze, terrible dog shit item. Please don't use that. I've seen it on so many builds. Please don't use this item. Obviously it might be good on other builds, but not this build. Circle of Fear, the Taming, or both. Okay. This is a personal choice. Use POB to figure out what's best for you. I think a good generic way of thinking about it is if you're not thinking of using a Darkness Enthroned, go Circle of Fear, because you will have a lot of space for res on your belt, which is good. But you'll want to have it needs to have the buff effect, the cold damage as the affixes, and it needs to have at least one good implicit for it to be worth using, so make sure you look out for those. If you're planning on using a Darkness Enthroned, I would highly suggest Taming. It gives you so much res and it gives so much damage. This 30C ring gives you as much damage as some 5 Divine Circle of Fears, and it gives you a bunch of res. The Taming is extremely good. And yeah, just use an Amethyst ring as well, because you'll want it for Chaos res. Okay, how Trinity works. So this is Trinity not working. This means you are not doing enough lightning or fire damage to proc the cold part of Trinity. This is Trinity working. So understanding Trinity is more important before Heat Shiver when you're using Wrath Aura and Lightning damage on items, because Heat Shiver just makes Trinity very easy. Basically, the cold damage you're doing with Frostblades will proc the lightning and the fire parts of Trinity here. So this is what it looks like when you do enough cold damage, right? Then you need either lightning or fire damage of an amount similar to Frostblades to proc the cold part of Trinity. So you need lightning or fire damage that's doing more damage than your Frostblades at some points, okay? Heat Shiver makes this very easy because when you're freezing, you proc Heat Shiver, which does fire damage that is higher than your cold damage, and that procs Trinity. So as long as your damage is high and you're freezing, Trinity will be working on this build. But yeah, before you get a Heat Shiver, like day one, you'll want to have a good amount of lightning damage on gear and Wrath Aura to be proccing Trinity properly. Capping your accuracy efficiently. Oh, the red circle moved. Okay, this red circle is supposed to be on this accuracy wheel. We don't use hits can't be evaded on this build, as the bottom accuracy cluster also gives a lot of attack speed, and we don't need much more to cap, so we don't want to drop that. Early on, you use this top accuracy cluster here, but once you start getting some decent gear, we want to drop this because it's not very good. Basically, the best way to accuracy cap is to get these 4 things here, okay? You want the bottom accuracy cluster with the attack speed and the close range mastery. So these 4 nodes here, these are very good. You want a 500 plus accuracy roll on gloves. I always try to get 550 plus because it means I need a lower level precision. You need level 8 to 10 precision based on the roll on your gloves. So if you have a 550 roll here, you can deal with level 8 precision, which is good. And then you also need 2 blind tattoos or any other source of blind if you're not doing this in the Total League. If you have these 4 things, you can drop this and you will still be accuracy capped. To fit a level 8 to 10 precision with your other auras, you'll need some extra mana reservation efficiency, which we're about to go over. But yeah, these 4 things are all you need to accuracy cap efficiently. If you do it this way, this is the best way to do it. Just do it this way. Now, reserving mana efficiently. So before you get a higher level precision, all you need for mana reservation is the mana mastery and the charisma wheel. That's all you need. But once you want to drop the top accuracy cluster and get a level 10 precision, you'll need either an Enlighten 3, which can be very expensive at the start of a league, on your 3 other auras, or you'll want a reservation helm enchant, which are usually cheap at the start of a league. These kind of swap over towards halfway through the league. Enlighten becomes cheaper and the helm enchant becomes more expensive. But you're going to want a Heat Shiver with either Herald of Ice, Grace, or Hatred reservation efficiency. Just get whichever one's cheaper. And please don't get mana reservation efficiency on shield, chest, or anywhere else. You don't need it. It sucks. You're not going to be able to fit a haste aura on this build unless you drop Grace. So please just don't even try. It's not worth it. Yeah, just all you need is the charisma wheel and the mana mastery, which you're taking anyway, and either an Enlighten 3 or a helm enchant. That's all you need for mana reservation, okay? The only other thing you can consider, this is kind of an endgame thing, so take this with a grain of salt. You can get a 90% reservation Heat Shiver implicit, like a Corrupted implicit, if you have a big accuracy roll on gloves and you only need a level 8 precision. You can drop the 4 mana wheel points, but yeah, check your POB before doing anything like this. And I think a +2 AoE, +2 cold Heat Shiver is better anyway. So yeah, it's up to you, but it's just something I wanted to make a note of, that you can do different for reserving mana. But yeah, if you're a new player, ignore this. Just get the charisma wheel, the mana mastery, and either an Enlightened 3 or a reservation helm enchant. And that'll be enough mana reservation to fit everything you need. Capping crit efficiently. Capping crit chance efficiently is very straightforward. If you follow the tree correctly, you crit cap with good base crit chance on core, so 30% plus base crit on core. Brittle on your boots as an implicit. The level 8 precision we talked about before. This +1 power charge node here. And a well-rolled diamond flask. So 50% plus suffix on your diamond flask. This will crit cap you. So everything I got underlined here. So brittle ground while moving on the boots. Increased crit chance on the core, 30% plus. And increased crit chance on the diamond flask, 50% plus. And a level 8 precision. And that's all you need. Ailment threshold. If you're not going to be doing lots of pinnacle bosses, you can probably skip over this part. But this is how you figure out if you can freeze bosses or not. So you find your ailment threshold in the calcs, you go to your freeze duration here, and your ailment threshold will be here. Ailment threshold, yeah, it's how you figure out if you can freeze bosses or not. You'll need to change some of your configs if you take into consideration what you're going to be able to hit the boss with before you freeze them. So before freezing, you're not igniting, so I lower the taming count from 3 to 2, because we're not igniting. I lower the shock effect to 10. This is very conservative. You can probably go 15 or 20, but I just go 10 to make sure. And I remove the chill effect completely. And because we're not freezing, Trinity isn't proccing, so I remove the resonance completely too. I think this can be 25 instead of 50, but I just take it off to make sure. Yeah, this is probably conservative, but I like to know for sure if you're going to freeze a boss or not. So once you've changed these calcs, you'll know your current ailment threshold, which is this here, 8.8 million. Your ailment threshold must be higher than the monster you want to freeze ailment threshold, which you can find on PoEDB. So some examples, Eater and Exarch are 4.3 mil, Cortex is 5.8, all the rest, so Maven, Elder, Shaper, and Cirrus are 7.4, and Kosis is 13.8 mil, so the Delirium boss, he is the hardest monster to freeze in the game. So if you can freeze Kosis, you can freeze everyone, right? And you need to freeze to proc your Heat Shiver, which will then proc your Trinity. So freezing is very important. So how do you get your ailment threshold up? There's two ways. You get more damage, because that just gives you ailment threshold indirectly, and getting freeze duration. Damage is self-explanatory, but the best way to get freeze duration is southbound. These gloves right here, you can see 100% increased freeze duration on enemies. This makes this 0.9 freeze duration go up to 1.9, which is pretty crazy. It's basically necessary to use southbound on pinnacle bosses to freeze them if you don't have giga damage, right? If your ailment threshold is 8.823 here without southbound, adding southbound on your gloves takes it to 19.2 mil, so you're freezing everything with southbound, right? Divergent Frostblades can also give you a little bit of freeze duration here, so that can help. But basically early on, use southbound on bosses and you will be freezing them, as long as you have decent damage. Southbound is extremely strong for bossing. Endgame upgrades. The ones in red down the bottom are memes. You shouldn't do this. The red ones up the top are not memes, but they're extremely expensive. Multiple mirrors to do any of these things. So you can pause if you want, but yeah, you're probably not going to do these. Darkness Enthroned. So this gives you like 30% DPS, right? It's a very, very good belt. But you need tier 1 suffixes on all of your rare gear and taming to help your res. You need to do this. You need your build in a very good spot to be able to use Darkness Enthroned, basically. But if you can fit it, it is extremely good. Forbidden Flesh and Flame, Opportunistic, these bad boys here. Pretty expensive, but 25% more DPS on pinnacle bosses. So this is nice. Ancestral Guidance on a medium clusters. These are 11% full DPS each. You can get 2 of them if you like. You will need your build in a very good spot to be able to use these. You'll need to be level 100, more than likely. But definitely something you can look into. A Fractured Cold Per Frenzy Opal Ring. It's like 10% DPS if you roll it well, like if you craft it well. And it gives you some utility and Chaos Res and Strength and Int and things like that. But you will need to Fracturing Orbit yourself, because these basically don't drop. Okay, unless you're doing like Fractured Essences. 10-7-5-5 Lethal Pride. This is the best Lethal Pride you can get. It's between 5 and 10% DPS depending on your build. 13-3-4-4 is also quite good. That one has Intimidate on it. This one doesn't, but this one, even without Intimidate, is just the best. So if you find one of these cheap early league, snatch it up. A 3-mod Watcher's Eye. So these are between 5 and 10% DPS, depending on what you get. So Flat Cold Hatred is a must, and there's a bunch of other mods you can get too. There's a bunch of precision mods. You can get LE Pen. You can get lots of stuff. And also Grace Evade. I highly recommend getting Grace Evade before any more damage here, because it takes you from 87 to 95% chance to evade, which is the cap, and that just feels very, very nice for mapping. A Point Blank Impossible Escape. This one's interesting. It's really good in the mid-game to end-game, but not at the very end-game. The reason for this is what it does is it lets you get Culling Strike so you can take it off your totems, but if you don't get anything good from that gem slot, it's not worth using. So only use the Impossible Escape if you're getting something out of the gem slot that it gives you. If you're not, I wouldn't even bother with it, honestly. Just use Culling Strike on your totems. Map mods and alters to avoid. Okay, the 2 Exarch ones here become less of a problem once your build gets better. But yeah, 600 chaos damage per second during flask effect before your chaos res capped. This hurts a lot. And chance to be targeted by a meteor when you use a flask. This one also hurts a lot. This still hurts endgame, but endgame you're moving a lot more, so they don't hit you as much. Eater, 40% reduced defense per frenzy charge. This basically reads go from 95% evade to 0% evade. So you're going to be hit by everything. So this mod sucks, but you know, if you're doing like juice maps, you have to take it regardless. So you just try not to die, you move a lot more. Map mods cannot regen. It is very annoying. You run out of mana after 3 to 4 Whirling Blades. You can do it. I wouldn't suggest doing it. I would just put this on your regex and get rid of it. It sucks. Alley Reflect. Once you get Awakened alley damage with attacks, you can't kill yourself with Frostblades on Alley Reflect. But if your Frostblink isn't level 1, you can still kill yourself with Frostblink, and you can still kill yourself with Whirling Blades. So it is a bit annoying. You can do it as long as you remember not to dash into packs. You can still do it. But yeah, these two are annoying. I would probably not do them. Some other bits and pieces of frequently asked questions. Why do some gems have weird levels? If you're using cast when damage taken, depending on what level it is, it can only support gems up to a certain level requirement. I think 6 cast when damage taken with 13 steel skin is the best breakpoint. I think this is what most people should use. As for Frostbomb and Frostblink, at level 11, they only have a 97 intelligence requirement, which means you don't need any on gear, which is very helpful. You get enough intelligence from the tree and the Yoke of Suffering. Can you put Bone Chill on something other than Frostblink? No. Even though POB says Bone Chill works with, for example, Whirling Blades, it doesn't. Bone Chill works with Chilled Ground, and only Frostblink applies Chilled Ground. So you need your Bone Chill attached to your Frostblink. It's very important. That's how you get the 7% more damage. Do fast suffixes stack? No. If you have 2 attack speed suffixes, it'll just use the higher value. So you want crit chance, evasion, attack speed, and either minus shock or minus curse effect. This 4th one here, the shock or curse effect, you will drop later on for a taste of hate. When do you switch to a large cluster jewel? You need to be at least level 95. And you probably want to have the +2 strike gloves so you can drop the attack cluster as well before going to a large cluster. I don't think it's worth doing if you don't have these two requirements here. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching the video, guys. Please have a look at the links in the description. There will be a link to our Discord community. There'll be links to lots of other helpful things. There'll be links to the POB. And Sentinel event is soon. Poggers. That's in like what, 3 days I think, or 4 days. So we'll definitely be playing that. So yeah, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks very much for watching.